So I sometimes just feel angry randomly ever since I've discovered that my family, my mother and my sister, they are narcissistic and emotionally abusive. And essentially, we just have a very dysfunctional family dynamic going on. And for the past few months, since I've been discovering, and it's still weird to me to just sort of like discover in my late 20s that I've been emotionally abused, that I've lived with a narcissistic mother and a narcissistic sister. It's weird to me to discover this now and to have not seen it all my life, even though certain things were a bit odd every now and again, even though certain things were hurtful. It never occurred to me. And I'm grateful to God who has decided that now it's time for me to see this, because other people, as I've been reading and just seeing other people even comment on other videos talking about narcissism, other people even realize in their 40s, 50s, or 60s, whereby they've lived their whole life like in fear of their mother or sister, or maybe even a significant other, where they have tried to please this person, where they have been confused all their lives. And I'm grateful to God that He has shown me this now while I'm still young, relatively young. I am in my late 20s. I'm grateful that I could have went on for the remainder of my years, however many years I still got in my life, and only to find out when maybe I'm 50 and I already have my own kids, and perhaps I've also passed on the dysfunctional behavior, the toxic behavior, the emotional abuse and narcissistic abuse. I would have passed it on to my children. They would have also suffered, because that is what I grew up with, and what you grew up with is normalized to you. Because I think part of not realizing that there's a certain dysfunctionality within a family, or certain things are not really normal, or that's weird, or that's abusive, part of not seeing that, it's because it becomes normal to you. And I think for me, the way that my sister would bully me, whether it was subtle or significant, the way that my mother would sometimes confuse me emotionally, and I would be left unsure of how I feel about something, how I feel about myself, it almost became normal. I actually intend to record an episode where I talk about how having a narcissistic family actually led me to date narcissistic, unhealthy people, because it was normal for me to not be valued, to not see my worth in a relationship, as fundamental as a family relationship. And so obviously when I started dating, I think I was kind of drawn to that emotional unavailability of a guy who would not treat me right, not respect me, not see my value, not be there for me, because that is what I was used to from home. And so now that I'm in this process, and it's literally been months since this year 2022, where I am discouraged, and I think it's happening at such a fast rate, because I got fed up. I got so sick and tired. I think when I went through the depressive episode towards the end of 2021, and I had to take antidepressants, I think that's where I just hit like rock bottom for me, because I've always had anxiety, which I just always knew was just at an abnormal level, even though at that time I wasn't diagnosed. I never went to the doctor. At that time, I had never seen a therapist, but I knew, when something just doesn't feel right in you, just like when you are sick, like when you are physically sick, you're the one who knows, because you know where it hurts. Like if you have a headache, nobody else can tell you that you have a headache. You know yourself, you feel it like that. And so it was the same thing for me with anxiety. I always knew that I have an abnormal amount of anxiety, and sometimes I wouldn't even know if I should call it anxiety, because I would just feel a sense of emptiness, like this void inside of me. And sometimes it would be loneliness that seemed to just overpower me, that seemed to overwhelm me, and insecurities and a low self esteem, questioning myself, doubting myself, questioning myself in even little stupid stuff where I don't think most people question themselves as much as I do. But then again, that might not be true, because we are also good at pretending like we're fine, pretending like things don't scare us. Well, at least some people are good at. And I think in most cases, I did try to hide it well, because when you know you're insecure about something, you try to make an effort to hide it from other people, because we don't want to be seen as weak. We don't want to be vulnerable. And it's not always safe to be vulnerable just to anybody. And I think that's another mentality that I'm starting to shut down now, that I don't have to be, because sometimes when people preach about being vulnerable, like open yourself up or let your guard down, it sometimes doesn't include the disclaimer that you don't have to open yourself up to everybody. Like, you don't have to be vulnerable and open yourself up and let your guard down with like your colleagues. You're probably not that close to them, and there are certain people that you can't trust with your heart. And I'm at a stage where I'm learning to do open up more and let my guard down more and be vulnerable. But I'm also learning that I need to pick my people, and I need to learn when and where to be vulnerable, and not just go on this spiraling road of just being vulnerable to anybody, because people will hurt you. Okay, just because you're being vulnerable and you're opening up and you're letting your guard down, people are not going to feel for you for that. Instead, other people are actually going to take advantage of that. And so sometimes the misguided, should I say, sometimes it's misleading when you hear these self-aware speeches or self-development speeches about open up more, like be vulnerable, be free. Not to everybody. This is why I always say, like, we need the wisdom of God for everything, because a lot of life has to do with balance. You can't just go on one extreme of just like saying I am so open with people, I'm vulnerable with everybody. That's also going to hurt you in the long run. But at the other side, you can't go on the other extreme, as to say I'm not going to open up to anybody, because there are people that are going to be close to you, that are going to be true friends, perhaps your partner, that you will need to open up to. Anyway, I digress. What I want to talk about is the dysfunctional behavior that I have started to see in my own family since I've been on this journey of seeing how much they've hurt me. Another thing that I was actually coming to when I said I sometimes felt feelings that I didn't know whether I should associate with anxiety, like feelings of emptiness, void, low self-esteem, all of that. Those things, they are mainly a result of being in a narcissistic, dysfunctional, toxic family. Those things, me having a low self-esteem, having so many insecurities, feeling an emptiness that I can't explain, sometimes feeling sad for no reason. I remember one time I told my roommate in varsity, I told her that sometimes I just feel sad. Like, it's either I would feel sad or angry for no reason. Like, it felt like my emotions were all over the place and I just couldn't control them. I couldn't get a grip on my emotions. And those are just some of the major results of actually having grown up in a dysfunctional family. So here are some of the things I wanted to mention, some of the things that I now see as dysfunctional in our family dynamic. Hurtful jokes. Or maybe let me not even say hurtful, because at the time when a joke maybe is said, I've mentioned this a couple of times. The one joke that really did stay with me was my family always making a joke about my toes. Like they would always say my toes are ugly, and it would be funny to them, and I would also laugh along. Because here's the thing, especially as a child, even as an adult, sometimes you just laugh along, even if it hurts. And this is why then people seem to not understand when you later tell them that what you actually usually joke about or say to me, I actually don't like it, because then to them it's like, but you were laughing along too and you seemed cool at that time. But also at the same time, if you don't play it cool or laugh along at the joke, the family joke, whether it's a joke that your siblings make about you or your family, for me it was my mother and my sister, if you don't laugh about it at the moment, then it seems like you can't take a joke. Then it seems like you're uptight. Then it seems like you're too sensitive. But then again, if you let it go and then bring it up later, for me, like years and years later, when I did have the courage to tell my family that they had actually affected my self-esteem, and even mentioning that when they used to joke about my toes, it really affected me. When they used to joke about me being skinny, it really affected me. When they used to joke about me having a flat ass, it hurt me, it affected me, it affected how I viewed myself for the rest of my life. Now, because now I'm telling them years later, now it seems like, oh, why didn't you tell us at the time? So you see, you can't win. And this is where the dysfunctionality starts. This is where the abnormality of the family starts, because if you say you don't like the joke at the moment, then you can't take a joke. But if you say it later, then why didn't you say it back then? So jokes that hurt, but sometimes you laugh along or you let it go, or maybe you never even mention it. Jokes that are actually just unnecessary. Like, and I don't know, because I'm a black person, I think maybe I just see it more within my own race, that like jokes like you have a big forehead, or like you are fat, or like you are too skinny. Like, this is why I'm saying, like, there's no winning. If you are fat, it's like, oh, you're too big. Then if you're skinny, I was skinny, then like, oh, like you are sticks, you are just bones. Like, who gets to determine what's the right size? Who gets to determine where's the balance? Where do I win? Where should I be so that I'm not the center of a joke? Okay, so within my own family, especially between my sister, my mother, and I, hurtful jokes were just a major dysfunctionality, a major toxic and unhealthy behavior, which just for their own pleasure, they would just make fun about me, and it didn't ever occur to them that it might be hurtful. And interestingly, my mother actually defended herself by saying that even within her own siblings, they used to just tease each other, joke about this and that, and she didn't take it to heart. And this is where the problem is. This is where abuse is perpetuated even to the next generations, because my mother and her siblings, they made fun of each other for their flaws, imperfections, physical imperfections. And then she later did it to me, to us as her own children. And then I also later do it to my own children, because, hey, my grandmother did it to my mother and my mother did it to me, so I am going to do it to my child. You see, the level of unhealthiness. It is so scary just because people don't choose to be different. And I'm so done. I'm fed up with the whole Oh, because it's an excuse, basically. It's an excuse that goes like, oh, like you should understand your mom's pain, like whenever as a young person, as a child, you talk about like I didn't like when my parents did this. I don't know whether it's the adults or just people or just everyone trying to make sense of why a mother or a father would hurt their child. It's almost like, and especially when it comes to emotional abuse, like if it is like rape and like physical abuse, then everybody's like, yeah, horrible mother, horrible father. But then when it comes to things like, oh, my mother used to make jokes about me, or my mother used to make me feel like I don't matter, or just make me feel like I'm worthless, then it seems like then people kind of defend that behavior and say like, oh, like your mother also just had a hard time growing up. She also was hurt by certain things. But for me, it's the choice, because as I'm speaking right now and uncovering all these things, and maybe it's a privilege, I don't know, maybe it's a privilege for me to be so self-aware, to be blessed with the opportunity to discover that, hey, I was abused in this way and that way, and I don't want to do it to my children. Maybe it's a privilege that I got, but it's also a choice that I'm making to be different, because I don't want to hurt my children or anyone else for that matter the way that my mother and my sister hurt me. So for me, it's annoying, and it just feels like a lame excuse to say that, oh, like they also had their pain. I am not denying them their pain. I am not saying they didn't have their pain. I'm not saying my mother didn't have her own troubles and pain and hurt, and also maybe other people making jokes about her. But what I am blaming her for and wanting her to be accountable for is the decision for her to do the same to others, for her to do the same to her children, instead of making a different choice and saying, hey, my own siblings used to joke about me and make fun of me because of this and that. I'm going to choose to be different for my children. For me, that's the annoying part. Just because you were once hurt and you had a traumatic childhood, it wasn't right. It wasn't fair. It shouldn't have happened. But that doesn't give you the right to then go on to hurt other people, to hurt the next generation, to hurt your children. You still have a freaking choice. And that for me, it just really bugs me that it seems like just because someone had a rough childhood, and do not get me wrong, I'm not trying to downplay anybody's traumatic experience. I myself have had like a shipload of issues just because of the dysfunctional, unhealthy, toxic, and abusive behavior from my own mother and sister. But that doesn't give me a right to then go on and hurt other people. Like, I have a role to play and a choice to make in terms of how I am going to react to what has been done to me and how I will progress to be, especially to other people, especially to my own children. So that really just ticks me off. It just really annoys me. It's a freaking lame excuse that, oh yeah, they were also hurt. Well, now I'm hurting. So yeah, great world. It's great because they were also hurt. Now they hurt me. So then maybe in turn I will also hurt my children. So what's the freaking solution? Because that's my question. Then what's the solution? If people can stand there and defend parents and say that, oh, they had it rough, and like especially single mothers raising their daughters alone, raising their kids alone, it's like, oh yeah, they had it rough, the father wasn't there, they were also young maybe when they got pregnant. What's the way out? Because yeah, now you're giving an excuse that they were also in pain. So now I'm also in pain because they didn't deal with their pain. And most people, if I wasn't this self-aware, I would also go on to inflict pain on my children. And then my children will also do it to their children. So what's the way out? You see why this bugs me? Because then if people can defend and speak up for parents and say like, you don't know what your mother went through, they grew up in a different time, then flip. the world is never going to change. Because now I'm hurt by my own mother who grew up in a different time and also had like her own pain and her own troubles, and then projected that onto me. And then I also suffered because she didn't deal with the pain. And then if I'm not self-aware and I don't work on myself, I also take that to my children. My children take it to their children take it out on their children. Then the world doesn't get better. So it's just a lame excuse to me right now. I just don't buy it anymore. It doesn't do anything to me anymore. It is just an excuse so that people don't have to deal with the issues that go around the family that are just not normal. Another dysfunctional behavior is also snappy responses. Like, my sister is the master of like snappy response. She has a cheekiness about her. She has this bossiness about her. Like, again, this type of behavior becomes normalized, and especially in my case and my sister's case, because we have such different personalities. I have a reserved personality. She has more of a, she's extroverted. Yes, let me put it like that. I'm an introvert, she's an extrovert. And so I've always felt overpowered by her personality. But more than that, it's not just that she's an extrovert, because being an extrovert is not the problem. Being an extrovert is not a problem. Being an introvert is not a problem. But being my sister is the problem. She's very snappy. Like, the way she will respond to you, sometimes she'll respond like she's speaking to a 6-year-old. Sometimes she'll respond like she's the freaking mother of the house. She'll respond like you kind of just annoying her, or you irritating her because you didn't do it like she said you should, or you didn't do something. Like, the snappy responses, like, there's just no need. There's no need to respond to anyone like that. And it's dysfunctional because it becomes normalized within the family. It becomes normal maybe for you guys to speak like that to each other, because I'd end up also being snappy because it would obviously annoy me the way that you would respond to me. Okay? Another dysfunctional behavior is undermining comments and backhanded compliments. My family, they're so good at this because the type of narcissists that they are covert narcissists, and I like to call it the undercover narcissist. They're not as blatant, they're not as obvious, they're not as obviously abusive or obviously hurtful. In fact, if you met my family, I bet you would love them. And you'll be like, what is that girl talking about? These people are lovely. They're funny. I like them and I want to live with them. My mother and my sister, they're absolutely lovable. You would love them. You'd want to be part of the family. Okay? And that's not even to say that they are pretending. It's all just part of who they are. Like, when you really listen to what narcissism is, it like them being charmful, them being likable, it's all just part of the package, okay? It's all just part of the package. And when you really you start peeling the layers and you really start spending time with them, you see all these other sides of them just start to show themselves more. So they can be very undermining and they can give backhanded compliments. What annoys me, and I have said this a number of times in my previous episodes, what annoys me is that they are not direct. Like, I wish I had something tangible that I can pinpoint, that I can hold them, like hold something against them and say, one day you said I was ugly. One day you said I was stupid. One day you said, I don't know. Like, I wish there was just something tangible, you know? But the problem is with these undercover narcissists, these undercover emotional abusers, it's the way they talk to you. This is why I'm even saying like backhanded compliment. You know, when someone compliments you, but you just like the spice. You like, I hear you complimenting me, but it's the kind of compliment that kind of leaves you wondering, wait, was that a compliment or was it? Like, you're not sure. And the undermining comments where they kind of just leave you wondering, like, wait, did they just actually say I'm stupid? But they didn't actually say it like that. Okay? So they're not gonna utter out the words that you are stupid, but they're gonna say something that makes you feel stupid. They're gonna make you feel stupid. And it annoys the freak out of me because I wish I had something tangible. I wish I had words, specific words that one day you said I'm this, one day you said, but because it's more of how they make you feel and the way they say it and how they phrase things, that is what hurts you. And it's even hard to tell other people because you're like, ugh, what would I say? They didn't really say I'm stupid, but they made me feel like I'm stupid. They didn't really say I'm ugly, but they made me feel like I'm ugly. Granted, there were some times where I think maybe it was more specific, but most of the time it's actually just undercover abuse. And that's why it's hard to spot. And that's why I think most of us, especially me, like I just didn't see the dysfunctionality within this family. Another dysfunctional behavior is the lack of boundaries. Boundaries are not respected, boundaries are not tolerated, boundaries are not wanted within a dysfunctional family. Again, this is something that I didn't really notice. I think I would just sometimes wonder because, like, with emotional abuse and narcissistic abuse, there's a lot of confusion. You sometimes wonder, am I taking this seriously? Am I too sensitive? Am I too emotional? If sometimes you ask yourself those questions, you're probably emotionally abused. You're probably living with someone who's very manipulative. You're probably living with someone who gaslights you. You're probably living with a narcissist. You're probably living with a toxic, dysfunctional, unhealthy person. All the bad words that you can find about a person. You're probably living with someone like that. If sometimes you end up at the end of the day just wondering, wait, maybe I took it seriously. Maybe they actually didn't mean it like that. Maybe I am too sensitive. Maybe I am too emotional. Maybe he didn't mean it the way I thought he did. Maybe, like I am just overthinking it. Like, and that's where they want you. That's exactly where they want you. Where you are blaming yourself. Where you are thinking, oh, I'm the overthinker. I'm the sensitive one. I'm the emotional one. Because then the accountability is not on them, it's on you. Like, then you are to blame. They're not the ones to blame. So you are the one to blame. So there's like, it annoys me even just thinking about it. It annoys me. Another dysfunctional behavior is unsolicited help. Like the way my family would just like do something for you when you haven't even asked them to do it. It's not because they're doing it from the goodness of their hearts. They're not. It's because they're just trying to. Honestly, I just think sometimes they're trying to be good people. They're trying to convince themselves that they are good people. Like, for example, this is a minor example. One time I washed my blankets and I was like, you know what? Winter's about to start. Early this year, actually. I wash my blankets. I leave them in the bathtub and I'm like, I'm gonna take them to the washing line tomorrow. And then my mom wakes up, takes the blankets and takes them to the washing line for me. And you would think, oh, like, great mom, like, she actually did the job for you. But no. First of all, I didn't ask her to do that. But you know what she ended up saying? Translated, she's now saying, you owe me because I hung your blankets on the washing line. Whenever they do something, whether it's now or later, it's gonna come back to bite you because then you owe them. And you know those people who are helpful in the sense that they help you, maybe even just like buy things for you, they're there for you, so much so, not even there for you. I think that's the wrong phrasing. They're not necessarily there for you, but whatever they are doing for you, which seems like it's helpful, which seems like it's them being there for you, then along the line, when they ask you to do something for them, there's almost like this unspoken knowing that they basically saying that I've done a lot of stuff for you, so now you have to do this for me. Even though they don't say that. But because you also know and they know that, hey, I've been doing stuff for you, so you basically can't say no. So that's the type of unsolicited help. Then my mother says I owe her because then later that day, she asked me to do something for it. And then she says, you owe me because I hung your blankets for you. But woman, I didn't ask you to. Why do I now owe you for something I didn't ask you to do? It is dysfunctional. If you thought it was like normal, it's not normal. Don't offer me help that I didn't ask and then hold it against me. Just stop. Don't do it if you don't want to do it. Because I didn't ask you and you clearly didn't do it from the goodness of your heart. So don't help me. I'd rather you not help me if you're really gonna hold it against me. I mean, I'd probably not even want help from someone that I would have asked for help. But if they're gonna hold it against me, I'm no longer gonna want help from that person. Even if I did ask them to help me, how much more a person that I did not ask? Why are you holding this against me? This is the type of behavior that goes on in this family. Another dysfunctional behavior is that we are not able to say no to each other. Mm. Have you ever felt like saying no? Not just like, because when it gets to like friends and partners and colleagues, that's on another level. But it starts from home. Like if you can't even say no to your sister, your brother, your father, your mother, your aunts, your uncles, that says a lot about the type of family you are. If someone can take you saying no, like even just another minor example, and I keep saying minor, but these examples are actually not minor. Like sometimes my mother wants to go for a walk, and then maybe we don't, or I don't want to go for a walk, and then she's offended. Like, how? And I thought this was normal because I also got offended when people said no to me. It shows a certain level of immaturity, a lack of emotional intelligence, even just confidence, even just security in yourself to be like, you know what, when I ask somebody to do something for me or do something with me, they actually have a right to say no. And it's not personal. They don't have some hidden agenda. And even if they do, that's on them. If they don't tell you, it's none of your business. If they have a hidden agenda, they should tell you. So there's kind of dysfunctionality within the families that you really can't say no to each other. Because if you say no to someone, or you can't offer help, or you don't borrow them money, or you don't do something for them, or you don't come to an event, or you don't come to a gathering, it seems like it's offensive. It seems like you've hurt people. It seems like you have a personal agenda. And that's not normal. It's not normal. I should be able to say no. And it's even worse when I can even give a reason. Like it's one thing that as an adult human being, I should be able to say no when you can just buzz off. But being decent enough to say no and give a reason, like maybe you want to go for a walk with me and I say no, I'm tired. Like I don't have to explain that further. I don't even have to say why I'm tired. I don't even have to start going through all the things I did through the day so that you believe me that I'm tired. If I say no, I'm tired, or no, I don't feel like it. And then it seems like you're being stubborn, you're being rude, and it's just like, come on. Come on. Like, can we just tell each other no and let that not be personal? Like, it's not personal. I just don't feel like doing that right now, or I don't have the money to borrow you, or I don't want to borrow you my money. because I also have a right to say that. And within families, it seems like you're not supposed to say no with your money. You're not supposed to say no to helping someone. You're not supposed to decline an invite to a gathering. And you absolutely can, actually, because you are your own human being. And families, especially dysfunctional ones, they don't seem to understand that. And I think to an extent, a lot of families, I don't know, maybe this is just me. I think to a certain extent, a lot of families have some level of dysfunctionality. But then in other families like mine, where they are narcissistic, emotionally abusive, the dysfunctionality is more extreme.